Good evening and welcome to this edition of Colorado Outspoken. I'm Stephen Montez. Tonight we'll be going to the Bear to Make a Difference event hosted by the Matthew Shepard Foundation. This year we saw the event cover 2 nights and we covered both of them for you. Professor Fawn is back once again to give us her insight about dealing with issues you viewers have written to us about, and Tom Biddle will get us caught up once again on the news. Of course, we have a great new movie that you can win for free, and we have tickets for you. And of course, the bulletin board. But first, we have part 2 of a fascinating discussion we started last month dealing with transgender youth coming out. Here's Fawn Oates.
Last month, we had the chance to explore the world of transgender youth. Because this is such a broad and wide-ranging issue, we decided that one interview is just not enough. Back with us is Michelle Benzer-Marquez, whose 15-year-old has recently transitioned and is going to school as a girl. Thank you for talking to us again, Michelle.
Thank you.
I'm also happy to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Buffet, a psychotherapist who often works with transgender youth. She's actively researching the biological basis for gender identity and is in private practice. Elizabeth is the co-president of Boulder County PFLAG and works closely with trans youth family allies. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So we got to talk last month a little bit about the biology sense of things. But why is gender such a big deal, Elizabeth? Why are we so upset about people changing genders?
Well, we really need to go back about 6,000 years.
You know, sort of I don't think we have time for
that. really, the basis of this, according to the scholarly research I've done, lies in the roots of the Judeo-Christian tradition, in which we have, for the first time in human history, a male God, a separate male God that creates man in his image, and out of that man creates woman. And of course this is a reversal of the biological fact that women are solely capable of bringing forth other human life.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yes,
right.
and for the 35 or 40,000 years preceding this period, you know, humans all over the world had lived with that recognition, you know, and really honoring that power of the feminine to bring forth life. It was a fairly there was no gender inequality during those millennia, and you know, the archaeological record indicates that there was widespread peace and cooperation and prosperity, and so that all started changing when we during the first the Judeo and then later the Christian and then later the Islamic traditions came in, and
so you think it's more religiously based?
Well, so that's part of it. It also stems from hunting and gathering practices as people evolved, and so
division of labor.
Exactly, a sex-based division of labor, and so we know that there was some interaction between the patriarchal religions and the sexual division of labor in hunting and gathering, but somehow it became institutionalized that there were 2 and only 2 discrete genders or sexes, and so we have this whole binary gender system that doesn't allow for any other expression other than male or female.
So when we have this in-between gender, it kind of throws our whole system out of whack.
Well, it does, because if we look at recorded history since these widespread ideas first started, we see that literally all of our social institutions, all of our social organization, from marriage and the family to the legal system to education to the way we socialize children to the political and economic systems, all of our social organization is based on that fundamental fact of a binary gender system in which one gender, the male, is inherently superior to the female.
So it comes down to power as well.
It comes down to power, because in those early systems, not only was man created in God's image and gave birth to the woman, but he was also given ownership and control over his wife or wives and children, and then subsequently all of creation. And so
6,000 years of history is now falling on the shoulders of 6, 7, 15-year-olds. How is your daughter dealing with that in terms of stress? Is there a lot of stress with this transition?
There was more joy with knowing that she was going to be able to transition. After our first therapy meeting, she came home and packed up all her boy things and put them in a box and said no more.
She was ready.
She knew. She was ready for a long time, and what we joke about is that she never transitioned. She always was who she was meant to be, which is female. It was the family who needed a transition. And those are some of the comments that I would make to her is, you need to let me learn. I'm meeting you halfway. Let me figure out what's going on. So she was very happy about the transition. She does have stress in her life, especially at school, trying to be typical just like the other girls and having the experiences and dealing with issues. Sometimes when she's still teased a little bit, maybe there's a little bit of harassment and things like that. These are experiences that she's learning to cope with. So there is some level of stress. But for her, and we've had this discussion, the happiness of her being able to be the gender that she identifies with far outweighs the stress that she's going through. Sure. And we do provide therapy for her, and we're always there for her as a family. She has counselors available to her. We make sure that she has the safest environment possible, and that it's a learning and coaching opportunity for her, because like other children and all people in general, we have to learn how to cope with the things that life, the obstacles and challenges that are out there, no matter what diversity we have.
And one of the things they've often said about gay youth is that if you have if you're Hispanic or if you're African American, your family will tell you these are the things that you might face. This is how to defend yourself against these things. But with gay youth, transgender youth, that often doesn't happen because the parents haven't had to face that. Elizabeth, do you find that parents have a rougher time kind of dealing with this and being that model for their kids than the kids have transitioned?
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons that having parents like Michelle is so important in terms of providing role models for what parents can do to facilitate their children being whole. And I just, totally admire and respect and support Michelle and all of the other wonderful parents I've met through my practice, who are providing that recognition and affirmation and support of their children.
Are you seeing parents at all different levels in terms of their acceptance?
Oh, yes, yes. Yes, and
that they have to go through stages, just like
exactly. I mean, if people are familiar with the Kubler-Ross stages of the grieving process, this is very similar for families who are going through this with a transgender child. We go through, there's the shock and denial and the anger and the bargaining and the depression and loss, and then hopefully ultimately the acceptance, and then moving on in a higher, healthier, happier way for all concerned. And so that's just normal, and one of the things that I talk to my transgender clients about is understanding that their families also have a gender transition process, and that they need understanding and support and love and time to go through these different feelings and to work through these things for themselves.
Sure, very much like what you were saying, I'm meeting you halfway.
And that would be the advice that I would give to parents if they know that they have a transgender child, is that they would have to figure out first where they're at in the process, and understand that they're going to probably jump around from any part of the process, from denial to grief to understanding, acceptance, things like that.
All on a given day.
It could happen. I mean, there would be times where I would be okay and I would be driving somewhere and I would start thinking about my daughter and the way people would look at her, judge her, what she has to deal with, the battles every day that she's going to have to deal with, and I would start crying. And I would be sad, not because of that she's transgender, but knowing the battle that she has in front of her, that every day there's going to be something that an obstacle or a challenge that she's going to have to overcome. So
did that lead you to be more public with her transition?
You know what actually led us to be more public with the transition was because I wanted people to see that if we're supportive and if we do things in the right way to help our children, and that that it can be a successful transition, and I believe that Milena is an example of a successful transition. It's not 100%. Nothing is ever 100%. There's obstacles and there's challenges, but she's a good kid and she's happy, and she goes to school. I believe that she's safe. She participates in activities. She participates in girls' sports, and she competes as the gender she identifies with, which is female. She has girlfriends and she has guy friends, and she goes out and does activities. So you tell me, you know, and she's happy psychologically. She's happy.
And Elizabeth, what do you think is the biggest challenge that the youth face? I mean, we've talked a lot about the parents and what they have to deal with, but what are some of the big issues the youth face?
Well, I think youth going through this often have a lot of fear, and one of the biggest fears is what's going to happen to me. Am I going to have to grow up in the wrong sex or gender?
So it's more of a fear of not transitioning.
Exactly, exactly. I don't think that, you know, in my experience, the fears are really not about the transition. I mean, they want that more than anything because they know innately that they need that in order to be whole. They need to bring the outer aspect, the outer presentation of their lives into congruence with the inner identity, to who they know themselves to be. And so so it really is, they're often in a really big hurry, and but when they think about growing up with the wrong genitals, for instance, that is a terrifying prospect to kids. And of course they worry about, just like everyone else does, will I ever find love? Will I find someone who will love me and accept me as I am?
Basic human needs.
Exactly,
sure.
Exactly. You know, will people reject me or accept me? You know, and so they have a lot of heavy concerns, you know, in addition to the excitement and the happiness, especially when we have these affirming families that do enable them to make their transition.
So coming back to that idea of acceptance and rejection, let's go back before she was your daughter, when he was your son. What was the social climate like? How did his peers react to him?
At that time, Milena was Manuel. He would endure quite a bit of teasing, harassment, and some bullying. He would come home and let me know that his day was okay or not so good. That he would be called he, she, hermaphrodite, it.
And that was before any transition.
And that was before any transitioning, anything like that. When we were really nervous and we were scared, what was she going to say when she transitioned? How would we answer the questions? And letting Milena go to school, and she was the one that was going to actually have to do the answering for herself. We couldn't be with her. But what we saw was what restored faith in me with our young people, that it was the ambiguity of not knowing, because she went to school as Manuel, presented herself as male, the pronouns were used he, but she behaved female. To the kids she looked female. Her mannerisms, the way she was all female. So when she went to school and she transitioned, she said, I transitioned over the summer. I'm now going by Milena. It's like the kids put it together and said, okay, you looked female, you acted female, we always knew you were female, and now you're telling us that you're female. So it all matches.
Sure.
It's congruent. And so, not to say that it was perfect and nobody ever teased her again, but to the kids it made sense. It's like, okay, now we can figure out where you're at, and we know that you're a girl because you've always been a girl to us.
And do you see that same thing happening with a lot of peers?
Absolutely. It's, as Michelle said, it's the ambiguity that puts kids at risk, or adults also. Most of the instances of violence against transgender people, it's because they, during their transition, they are sexually ambiguous. And of course that violates people's sense of this innate either or, male or female gender order.
Doing the transition actually gets back to that binary
Exactly,
system. Sure.
And so that's another argument for supporting kids and making the transition as early as possible, because it has to do with safety. Not only their psychological sense of growing up congruent and being who they are and being whole, and you know, avoiding all of the physical developments that are going to come with puberty and adulthood, but also that sense of social safety.
Sure, and that's enormous.
It is enormous.
What does the peer situation look like now?
For the most part, she has a very supportive peer group. There's some teasing, a little bit of harassment from time to time. I don't mean to minimalize it, but it's kind of become we've come to to know that it's going to happen. But for the most part, if somebody teases her, she has a group of people. It could be one person today, a different one tomorrow, that support her, and they tell the other kids, that was not cool, why are you doing that, leave her alone.
So they're sticking up for her.
And they're sticking up for her, and they encourage her to go out for sports, they encourage her to date, they encourage her to just be a typical girl, and they don't understand sometimes, for example, that she uses the unisex restrooms and has a separate locker room, she uses the coach's locker room, and some of them have told her and expressed her that they think that that's stupid, that they see her as who she is, and she should be allowed to use the restrooms just like everybody else. Of course, not everybody thinks that way.
Sure.
So, but they accept her for the most part.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about the dating scene now. How is that going? I mean, I think for any mother of a 15-year-old daughter, you just don't want to think about it or have it happen.
No, absolutely not. So when Melina first transitioned, the rule was absolutely no dating at all. None. She was 13 years old, and there was going to be no dating.
Was that because of her age or because of some fear?
That was because of her age and because of the fear, because everything should be age appropriate. And I wasn't sure how much to discuss with her, where at 13, how much could you really date? It just, for our personal values, that just wasn't the right time. But then I discovered that I didn't want to become the enemy. I want to keep the lines of communication open, which are very important. So I didn't want her to think that mom was the mean one and mom didn't want her to date. It was the fact that she needed to be able to have the maturity level to date. And so when I told her, well, you can date when you can answer how you're going to go about this. What will you tell that boy that's interested in you, that wants to take you to the movies? Will you let them know that you're transgender? When you can answer those questions for me, then we'll talk about you dating.
Sure.
So it put the ball back in her court so that she had to mature and figure out what were the answers. What take does she want to have on this situation? And so we've discussed that. She's gone out like on one day, and she is kind of toying with the idea of seeing somebody right now. But we always make sure that she tells them, have you heard of the word, the term transgender? Do you know what that means?
Sure.
And so that at least it becomes a topic of conversation so that they're not caught off guard. And the reason we discuss that with her is because we don't want her to have somebody that's angered and humiliated and come after her and hurt her and things like that, so that hopefully they start a relationship on the same page, knowing that she is different, she's transgender, and take it one step at a time that way. So I hope for all the best. I want her to date. I want her to have experiences,
Sure.
But we also were honest with her and let her know she is different. And that she needs to take extra precautions and be open and honest and be very, very safe. That at the high school level, they're just maybe not quite ready to deal with that.
Well, it's very difficult, especially in our society. I mean, I don't even know if college level or adult level we're completely ready to deal with it in our culture of extreme homophobia and gender bias. Do you see the same kind of thing of wanting to date and having to deal with that?
Yes.
Extra piece.
Yes, and of course, whether you have a gender normative child or a transgender child, they're all going through adolescence. They're all obsessed with that,
Sure.
and they're all terrified of the same things.
Sure.
Yes.
We're all just petrified of one another.
Exactly. And you know, I think it's so important, as Michelle is doing with her daughter, to teach kids about boundary setting and about refusal skills and that kind of thing, and about their entitlement to physical safety and to being in control of what they do with their own bodies and that kind of thing. And so, you know, we want to do that with any teenager.
Sure. But we know that there is a lot of violence going on towards transgender folks.
Yes.
And as you said, a lot of it comes out of ambiguity, people not knowing and finding out and feeling somehow that they've been betrayed in some way. Is that something that you focus a lot on, Michelle, is keeping her safe?
That is one of the very first things that I made sure when she transitioned to middle school, that the faculty and myself, we were on board to make sure that she was safe. When we first took her to school, that somebody was always watching for her. Everybody had an eye open, an ear open to find out if there was issues, and if there were they based because she was transgender. Kids are going to have drama, and there's issues everywhere no matter what. And we didn't want to keep her from that. She needs to have that. But if we or anybody had a sense that this could become an issue because she's transgender and she wasn't going to be safe, then what I really appreciated the middle school did was not only would they pull her in and say, okay, what's the issue, what's going on? Did you think about how this individual is feeling, this group of girls or this boy that you're interested in? Let's do some role playing. How do you think that they might feel and how they react? react. And they would also discuss it with the kids that were involved. Now, how do you think Milena would feel?
Sure.
How do you think this makes her feel when you call her this? Or
So
what
they're
about
not really
this situation?
blaming her for this problem.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that it was a win-win situation, so that both sets of kids were learning to respect one another as individuals and respect the diversity that we all have in one another.
And I think that goes for anybody at any
Absolutely.
age. Sure.
And you know, at first it was the cell phone, and if she was even 30 seconds late, I was panicked, and it's getting better, but we refer to her safety in using her antennas. If she doesn't feel safe, somebody knowing where she's at, and I've had to teach her, especially as a female.
Right.
As females,
Yes,
you need
right.
to know who's around you, what's going on, be safe, don't walk in the dark, don't do lots of things that we as women do.
Yeah,
and
it's
I've
part
had
of that gender socialization.
Exactly.
Sure.
So it is a priority for us, and we worry about it often, but we can't keep her on a tight rein all the time.
Sure. You've got to let kids be kids.
Exactly.
And get into hairy situations. But I can't believe it, but we are out of time again. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed researching and discussing this topic. It's really something that's very close to my heart. And I'm so happy that there are people out there doing this kind of work. So I would like to thank my guests, Michelle Benzer-Marquez and Dr. Elizabeth Buffet, for joining me and continuing to fight for the rights of all people.
The 7th annual Bear to Make a Difference Celebrity Dinner and Teddy Bear Auction took place recently in Denver. Comedy night was at Hamburger Mary's, where it was hilarious. Our Eden Lane dropped in to see what it was all about.
Good evening, this is Eden Lane with Colorado Outspoken, and tonight we're here at Hamburger Mary's Club M for the Bear to Make a Difference Matthew Shepard Foundation event before the event. Tonight they have a fabulous show. It's a comedy night. The headliner is Alec Mapa, and the hostess is Alexandra Winters with her special guests Brittany Michaels, Danielle Roberts, and the legendary Nina Montaldo. Can you tell me, Alexandra, how did the Bear to Make a Difference event even get started?
About 7 years ago, I was shopping with a friend, and just kind of on a lark, we were walking by the Build-A-Bear factory and said, you know, wouldn't it be fun if we did a fundraiser wherein we got people to build teddy bears in their own likeness, and then we auctioned them off. Long story short, the foundation took it on as their annual national fundraiser, and this is the 7th annual this year, and we have teddy bears from Tom Hanks and Jennifer Aniston and Bette Midler and the girls from The View, just to name a few of many, many, many.
You must be really excited, especially since one of your own characters actually donated a bear.
Absolutely. This is the second time that Bette has donated a teddy bear, and I'm thrilled to death, and the bear is adorable, and I just need to do a little more hair so I can bid on the damn thing.
How did you get this amazing cast, not only local magnificent entertainers, but including Alec Mapa?
Now, Alec Mapa, I can't take any claim for. He's been here for us before, and God bless him, he is, as he says, he's one of Judy Shepard's disciples, and when Judy says jump, he says how high. So I was standing in the office when they made the phone call, and he said, absolutely, tell me where to be, tell me when to fly in, and I'll be there.
I've been involved with the foundation for the last 7 years, and this event in Denver, unlike any of our other events, feels more like a familial event. Denver is our family. Wyoming and Colorado are our family, and this is the time that all of the members of that family get to come together, and we honor Matt's legacy. And this event tonight is opening it up to another aspect of our community that might not be able to afford to come to the gala tomorrow night at $200 a ticket. And it lets them know that we value them just as much as the people that can come tomorrow night.
What motivated you to participate?
Well, I've been involved with this event for the last 5 years, since its inception, actually. When it was done at JR's, and then when it's moved to the hotel and became a larger, big event overall. And my good friend Andrew Tweedy was part of the foundation, and that's how I became involved with supporting it and being involved with the dinners and volunteerism, and that's how I have participated.
So I think we need to educate people, to broaden their horizons, to annihilate ignorance, and to make people understand that we're all just people who need to get along.
And to quote one of your most famous characters, people who need people?
Yes! Very apropos.
And are you gracing us with Barbra Streisand tonight?
She will be here tonight.
And who else might you be doing?
I think a good country western star, the little spunky red-headed one that's got her own television show. I actually look forward to it because it's something that's new and refreshing. I haven't done it in a while, so I love to entertain.
Nina, could you tell me, as one of Denver's legendary entertainers, why did you feel it was important to participate in this event this weekend?
Well, I started 6 years ago when they started at JR's. It was this very small event, maybe about 100 people. We all donated fares, and that's when I started 6 years ago.
And you've raised literally thousands of dollars through your efforts in the Denver community. Can you tell me what even got you started doing all of this charity work?
Well, I love to be noticed. I started in 1969, so you do the math.
And who will we see you be doing tonight?
I will be doing Shirley Bassey and Dinah Ross. But normally I do Cher tonight, but my Cher wig was not out of commission. Shirley Bassey is one of my favorites.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Alec Mapa is a funny guy who's always there for the Matthew Shepard Foundation. We caught up with him on Comedy Night and had a chance to talk to him.
Tonight's show is so gay. Weeks from now, you're all going to still be finding glitter in your poo. Okay? That's how gay it is. Oh, so do you like the outfit? Yeah! I kind of had to bring it tonight. I live in LA. I work in television. This is actually a costume I wore on a recent Dateline special on Catholic internet predators. Away too much. Let's just say Monsignor Cummings won't be IMing anybody anytime soon. I'm always struck by how the people in Denver look. You guys are so butch. You know, everybody's dressed like they're going to a tailgate party, or going hiking, or going skiing, and faggoty me gets off the plane like, ah! I have been traveling all across the country, fulfilling my official duties as America's Gaysian sweetheart. It's not George Takei, it's me, okay? She tried to steal my thunder last year, and I said, listen, Sulu. You wanted to be queen of the Ching Chongs. You should have come out 35 years ago. It's not like it would have hurt your career.
We're here backstage at the Bear to Make a Difference pre-show show with Alec Mapa. Now, if Alec Mapa looks familiar to you, that's because you've probably seen him on Ugly Betty, Desperate Housewives, Wisecrack, and of course, one of my favorites, Trans-American Love Story.
Yes.
Now, before we get into the serious stuff about why you're here this week, can you tell us what might be coming up next for your characters on Desperate Housewives or Ugly Betty?
Well, Ugly Betty, I know that we're finishing up the season. We're shooting 5 more episodes, and I go back to work in LA like right after this. So, but they keep things really under wraps. Like, I don't see the script until we're actually sitting down next to, you know, at the table read. Like, I'll be sitting next to Vanessa Williams, and I'm like, what's happening? She's like, I don't know. So,
sitting next to Vanessa Williams.
Yeah, so, did somebody drop a name?
Your character in Ugly Betty, did you base that character on anyone that we've seen on fashion television?
I think it's like a combination of everybody, you know, the really aggressive personalities, you know, coming at you on FTV, you know.
Of course, your latest project has become one of my favorites, and that's Trans-American Love Story. How did you get involved in that show?
Logo approached me. They wanted to do a very conventional dating show with Calpurnia Adams, but they wanted it to have a very light touch. So I'm the light touch. I didn't want to be a part of it if it was going to be really Jerry Springer-y and kind of exploitive. And Andrew is telling me that, you know, it's revolutionary in that it's showing trans people just living their normal lives, because so much of the time the media is focused on the transition. You know,
absolutely.
You know, the transition, and it's like if they only ever focused on gay people's coming out stories. It's like, is that your whole story? No. I mean, you had a whole other life after that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's part of the story. It's not the whole story. This is my second time working for the Matthew Shepard Foundation. I met Shepard like maybe 2.5, 3 years ago in Washington, D.C. at a Human Rights Campaign dinner. And I told her, anytime you need me, just call me. And she's called me, and I've showed up.
And now this time you're doing a whole weekend with us.
A whole weekend? For free.
A whole weekend for free with Alec Mapa.
Why is that anything new? You know?
Well, we're awfully delighted that you were able to be here. And thank you so much for taking the time out before your set to come and sit with us.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
For Colorado Outspoken, this is Eden Lane with Alec Mapa.
At the Better Make a Difference dinner and auction, I had a chance to speak with Judy Shepard, Alec Mapa, and John Amici.
Everything at the same, I'm going to do the same thing here. Open it up 500, like 7. Tim McGraw, thank you for the celebrating gentlemen. Everybody get 700, last call. Last call, 100, like 7. Tim McGraw, thank you for the celebrating.
We're introducing a campaign called, it's the campaign to erase hate. 10 ways, raise yourself to the power of 10. 10 ways to, in your everyday life, erase hate in your community, your schools, your workplace. And it's really very easy, simple, everyday things we do without even thinking. But now we need to think about what it is we're doing and what it means and how we can take care of ourselves and our friends as well. It's, you know, I think the first year we did it at a hotel, it was about 200 people. Now we're at 5. It's just it's very fun, very familiar, very familial, family, you know, good friends. It's just wonderful. And the support has just been outstanding.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really honored that Judy asked me, so anything I can do to help is like great. It's an honor. I was at the Human Rights Campaign dinner in Washington, D.C., and Judy introduced herself to me, and I was immediately mortified because I felt like I should be the one introducing myself to her. And she said, I just want to thank you for all the stuff you've done for our community. And I was like, I've done nothing. You've done a million amazing things, and you're so inspirational, and anything I can do for you, just let me know. And she said, well, it just so happens that she had a couple of events coming up, and I was available, so here I am.
I had one drink, and the next thing you knew, I woke up next to John Amici. What can I tell you? It's a miracle I can walk. That's all I'm saying.
I actually got a chance to meet Judy nearly a year ago now. At a HRC dinner or something, some event around the country, and our paths crossed on the road a few times, and you know, her story, the story of her son, and what she and her husband Dennis have done, is a story that's inescapable, and something that certainly captured me and made me want to be involved.
Thank you for watching Colorado Outspoken.
Since you are watching this, chances are you value the kind of program that Colorado Outspoken has been producing for the past 18 years. As volunteers, we do this work because we believe that it's important for the LGBT community to have a voice. When we first began, there were no other outlets for information directed towards our community. Today we have channels such as Logo and OutQ Radio, but we continue because we believe that a local voice is still needed. We all want to know how local politics might affect our lives, what events are happening in the Denver area, and how the local climate is continually changing. We believe that you feel the same or you wouldn't be with us tonight. In order to continue being your source of GLBT news in Colorado, we need your help. It takes little money to put on this show, but it's money that we don't have. We ask you to show your support financially by going to our website, coloradooutspoken.org, and donating whatever you can. The least amount helps. Thank you for helping us make Colorado a better place to be for everyone.
Are you caught up to speed to everything that's happening in our community? Well, that would be really hard to do, especially if you didn't have the news on Colorado Outspoken. Here's Tom Biddle sitting in for Rick Miller.
Politics and a time crunch may have doomed national legislation of importance to the LGBT community. The Employment Non-Discrimination Act and the Gay Inclusive Hate Crimes Bill are in danger because of a combination of election year politics, Republican calls for filibusters, and a crowded calendar. There is speculation that Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid does not want to bring the hate crimes bill to a vote because doing so would help the re-election chances of moderate Republican senators. Senator Reid's office disputes that claim. Also in the Senate, Senator Edward Kennedy is spearheading the Senate passage of a House-approved bill to ban workplace bias based on sexual orientation but not gender identity. Kennedy called the bill the best opportunity for progress until a Democratic president can be elected. President Bush is expected to veto the measure. And at the state level, a bill banning bias based on sexual orientation stands a good chance of passing the Florida legislature, although many LGBT activists oppose the measure because it does not cover discrimination based on gender identity. A more inclusive measure is not being supported by state House leaders. Similar concerns have been expressed over the failure to include transgender protections in the proposed Federal Employment Non-Discrimination Act. GLBT California citizens may have a new friend in their governor. California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger came out strongly against a proposed constitutional marriage ban. During a speech at a recent meeting of the Log Cabin Republicans, Schwarzenegger said the ban is a total waste of time. The governor, who has previously vetoed several equal marriage rights measures, believes the state's high court must first rule on the current marriage ban before the law can be changed. Bans on same-sex marriage could be bad for state economics. Marriage rights supporters in Pennsylvania have made that claim about a proposed constitutional marriage ban. They said the law would detract from the state's ability to recruit top workers and potentially could affect all unmarried couples, gay or straight. Stacy Sobel, executive director of Equality Advocates Pennsylvania, said, "It will not prevent one couple from getting divorced. It will not feed, clothe, or educate a family's child." The other side of the economic coin can be seen in states that allow equal marriage. Ceremonies, receptions, and destination weddings for same-sex couples have become big business in northeastern states such as Massachusetts, Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, and New Hampshire. New Jersey alone could realize more than $100 million in annual revenue from these events. Equal treatment for a gay member of Congress has been achieved, but only after intervention by the Speaker of the House. The partner of U.S. Representative Tammy Baldwin, the only openly gay female representative, was originally barred from accompanying Baldwin on a military flight for a congressional trip to Europe. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi intervened along with Defense Secretary Robert Gates, and Baldwin's partner was allowed on board. Observers say the military's objection was based on the White House's discomfort with equal marriage rights. The firing of Leslie Hagan, a career attorney at the Department of Justice, is being investigated for possible anti-gay bias. Hagan, whose job performance earned the highest possible evaluations, was nonetheless fired after rumors surfaced that she was a lesbian. Involved in the action was Monica Goodling, former senior counsel to former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. Goodling has admitted that she allowed political and other considerations to affect personnel decisions in violation of civil service rules. Gay Catholic activists are expected to protest against the Pope during his visit to the United States. The protests will be in response to the repeated condemnation of LGBT couples and families by Pope Benedict XVI. Marianne Duddy Burke, executive director of Dignity USA, a GLBT Catholic organization, said, "He has issued some of the most hurtful and extreme rhetoric against our community of any religious leader in history, and we want to call him into account for the damage that he's done." LGBT parents may be doing a better job than their straight counterparts. A study of gay parents has found that they are more likely to be involved in their children's K-12 education than the general parent population. It found that gay parents were also more involved in school activities and were more likely to have consistent communication with school personnel. The report was prepared by the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network in partnership with the Family Equality Council and other groups. A Wikipedia article about a recently killed gay soldier was apparently sanitized by the Pentagon. Army Major Alan Rogers was killed in Iraq in January, and an article about him was posted on the open-source website wikipedia.com. Shortly thereafter, references to Rogers' sexual orientation and mention of his activism to reverse the military's gay ban were deleted from the article. The changes were traced to the Pentagon office of the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence, but the identity of the person who made them is not known. The Army has refused comment. Richard Ellis, McDonald's Vice President of Communications, has been elected to the Board of Directors for the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. Speaking about his election, Ellis said, "I'm thrilled to join the Chamber's team and ready to get to work. I share the NGLCC's passion for business growth and development within the LGBT community." A gay Salvadoran man has been denied permanent asylum in Canada. The man claims to have been raped by 3 Salvadoran police officers who have now threatened to kill him because he allegedly infected them with HIV. Francisco Rico Martinez, executive director of Toronto's FCJ Refugee Center, expressed dismay that the anti-gay climate in El Salvador apparently was not considered in the decision. Gay rights legislation in Italy is expected to take a back seat in the administration of recently elected right-wing businessman Silvio Berlusconi. The Christian Democrat government, which is about to yield control to the winners of this month's elections, was unsuccessful in getting a measure passed that would have offered some pension and health insurance rights to unmarried partners. The new administration is not expected to pursue the legislation. Religious fervor is apparently behind a recent crackdown on gays in the Middle East. Police in Kuwait, Egypt, Morocco, and elsewhere are targeting GLBT people in what is speculated to be an effort to appease religious elements. Hani Shrukala of the Cairo-based Haikal Foundation for Arab Journalism said, "Meaningless crackdowns have become a regular thing. If not gays, devil worshippers. If not devil worshippers, apostates. The government needs to outbid Islamic opponents as guardians of morals." And finally, in other international news, Poland wants to be part of the European Union, but it doesn't want to abide by the Union's guarantees of equal rights for gays and lesbians. Poland's president, Lech Kaczynski, has claimed the EU's Charter of Rights would force Poland to endorse homosexuality and legalize same-sex marriage. The Polish Senate has approved the charter, but with a provision that will allow the country to opt out of equal treatment for its GLBT citizens. And that's it for the news for this month. I'm Tom Biddle.
The bulletin board is a great way for our community to become aware of resources and events. Now there's a way for you to directly post your messages on the bulletin board, and we've added categories so it's easier for you to find postings that interest you. Just go to our website and choose a bulletin board on the menu. Each month, we'll select a number of web postings to be included in the bulletin board that runs during the show. And that's coming up right now.
your business can be a part of Colorado Outspoken.
You can have your logo at the beginning and end of each of our programs.
And on our website.
We have sponsored packages for any pocketbook.
Send an email to sponsor@coloradooutspoken.net.
Or call us at 303-861-0829.
I will contact you personally, and you can be a sponsor of Colorado Outspoken.
Sex can be a great fun, but it also be confusing. To help you realize the fun and remove the confusion, we have our very own sex advisor. Here's Professor Fawn.
Every time I teach human sexuality, I get questions that are nearly impossible to answer. Tonight we have 3 such questions that may not have solid answers, but do give us a lot to think about. So let the thinking begin. Dear Professor Fawn, thank you for your advice on my friend's issue of one of them using a sex website. Since they have broken up, my question is, my friend now wants to date someone else already. Shouldn't he take a break and not jump back into dating someone right away? Signed, Prince Albert. Well, glad to see you again, Prince Albert. This is a tricky one that doesn't have much of a concrete answer. Pop psychology has spent a great deal of time coming up with various formulas and pithy answers about when to start the dating ball rolling again. The problem is everyone's relationship is different, and how they deal with the ending of a relationship is also going to be very different. Some of the factors involved are things like the intensity of a given relationship. If this has been a very intimate 20-year relationship, well, that's going to take a while to recover from. If they've been seeing each other on and off for the past few months, they'll probably be back on the dance floor by the next good song. It also depends on how the relationship ended. If the breakup is more one-sided, the person who did the breaking up will be ready to date again much quicker than the person who was broken up with. If you're unsure of where you're at, I like to use the first date test. If you go on a date and feel compelled to talk about your ex, you are not ready. Even if they ask you about your ex, it doesn't mean that they want to hear you go on for 20 minutes about how you're fighting for visitation rights to see the dogs. If you can't make the date about getting to know them and only them, then maybe it's time to cool your jets and allow your heart to heal. Our next letter reads, Dear Professor Fawn, I've been out for about 10 years, and in that time I've been with my share of women. However, I wasn't quite prepared for what I discovered during my last hookup. Once we started fooling around, I realized that she had the largest clitoris that I had ever encountered. Is this normal? Signed, Super Freaked. Well, Super Freaked, you have encountered some of the wonders of human variation. We traditionally have very few chances in our lives to view the genitals of a wide range of normal adults. One of the only places to get up close and personal with someone else's genitals is through pornography. This is a huge problem since whatever traits that aren't seen as typical, which is another word for normal, are going to be avoided. We are left believing that these images are representative of all people. Add on to the problem that we'll avoid talking about any part of us that doesn't meet the norm, and you have a society that believes human variation doesn't even exist. The vulva has many different faces and colors. The length of a clitoris is usually somewhere between about 1/12 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. However, 20% of women have a much larger clitoris that can be as large as 2.5 inches. So to answer your question, Super Freaked, both her clitoris and your reaction are pretty normal. Our last letter reads, Dear Professor Fawn, I recently started transitioning from a female to a male. I pass for male most of the time because I'm taking hormones, but I haven't had any kind of surgery. I'm currently single, but I don't want to be. The part of about the transition that worries me is how to handle coming out to girls that I am interested in. Any suggestions? Signed, On the Prowl. Well, wow, this is one of those ultimate unanswerable questions. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to attempt it, but it does mean that the answer is going to vary from person to person, and ultimately you'll have to decide for yourself how to handle each encounter. What I can do is talk about some of the issues that are involved. When you meet and start to get to know another person, you begin to create a sense of intimacy. One of the most effective ways to do this is to talk about subjects that are very personal, which is a very vulnerable place to be, but the more I disclose about myself, the more I allow the other person to get to know the real me. Sharing these private details are necessary for any relationship to grow and flourish. If I can't talk about some of the things that have been significant in my life, like a gender transition, then it becomes much harder to develop that sense of intimacy. The reason people will often give for not disclosing their birth gender is the idea that they will be rejected before a person gets a chance to know them. This is a perfectly reasonable fear. But let me give you the other side of the coin as well. Those who find out later in the relationship often feel that the person they were trying to get to know doesn't even exist, and that the intimacy that was forged was built on a lie. The omission seems like a betrayal in the sense that the self-disclosure was a one-way street. They told you about scary, intimate things about themselves, but you kept one fairly large thing hidden. We may feel that our gender or our sexuality is just one small part of who we are, but to many people it defines who we are. I certainly don't believe that it's the most important part of ourselves, but it does greatly affect our experiences and how others see us. Keeping a gender transition under wraps seems like one small omission, but it begins to affect almost all disclosures. Every story from Girl Scouts to your annoying date to the prom has to be modified. All that being said, it is always going to be your decision about what to tell and when to tell anything about yourself to a future partner. Just be safe and treat others as you would want them to be treated. If you have a question that you would like to see answered, go to our website at www.coloradooutspoken.org and select the Sex Advisor section. Some questions will be answered on our website and some will be answered right here on the air. Have a fabulous evening and play safe, everyone.
Remember the guy who tossed his cookies in the first movie called Super Size Me? Well, he's back with a silly, serious, scary search for the world's most wanted man. Here is Where in the World is Osama bin Laden?
Throughout history, mankind has gone to the ends of the earth to chase the greatest treasures. Now, the final search begins for the most elusive prize of them all.
Yoo-hoo! Osama!
If I've learned anything from big-budget action movies, it's that complicated global problems are best solved by one lonely guy.
Where are you going to be going?
We're going to go look for Osama bin Laden.
Okay.
If I'm going to find Osama, then I'm going to be traveling to some pretty scary places.
This course is reality-based protection.
Turn away from the grenade. Move!
How do I say, don't take me, take the cameraman? I'm looking for Osama bin Laden. Why is that funny?
We don't know whether he's in a cave with the door shut.
I was wondering if we could ask you a question.
No. Or a cave with the door open. I got a tip on where to find his uncle, Mahfouz Assam.
You wouldn't turn him in for the $25 million?
But I'm a wanderlust!
It's impossible. Mission is impossible.
It's a hardcore Taliban country. There's 21 guys here with guns.
When whoever's escorting that says, let's go, it means go now.
Go now! We ask every town, hey, you guys know where Osama's at? And they always point, get to that Osama.
So that way.
Where in the world is Osama bin Laden?
So this is a good moisturizer? It'll keep my hands really soft? Yeah? And do you know where I could find Osama bin Laden?
If you'd like to go see this movie for free, we can make that happen. Just go to our website, coloradooutspoken.org, and enter your name in our drawing. We'll be giving a pair of tickets to 10 randomly selected people. To complete your entry in the drawing, you'll need the code word for this movie. It is Osama. Where is Osama is now playing at the Mayan. That's all we have for this edition of Colorado Outspoken. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in just a month, so please tune in on Sunday, May 25th, right here on KBDI Channel 12. Until then, you can always visit us online at coloradooutspoken.org. Drop by and talk to the Sex Advisor, see what's going on in your community, watch the show again, and check out our MySpace page and our Colorado Outspoken blog. All this can be found on coloradooutspoken.org. Until then, I'm Stephen Montez. Good night.